Hello and welcome to the debate. I'm your host Rafae Iqbal, and in today's show we'll be deliberating on the topic a new cabinet, old challenges. In that regard, we'll talk a little about the backdrop of the whole scenario. As we know that Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif has been sworn in as the Premier of the country, Asif Ali Zardari has been sworn in as the head of the state, the President of the country. And with that, there were questions revolving around the cabinet and how the government is going to take things forward. Of course, the policies it's going to be taking, the initiatives and the framework that it's going to be developing to implement that framework. In that regard, of course, Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif, as soon as he was sworn in, he signalled towards talks with the IMF and immediate talks with the IMF. In that regard, of course, the first step would be appointing the finance minister. And as there was a lot of anticipation regarding the announcement of the cabinet, and of course now as we know that the cabinet has been announced, it is a 19-member cabinet that is comprising of many popular names such as Khwaja Mohammad Asif, SN Iqbal, Rana Tanveer Hussain, Azam Nazir Tarar, Chaudhry Salik Hussain, Abdul Aleem Khan from the IPP, Jam Kamal Khan, Engineer Amir Maqam, Sardar Owais Ahmed Khan Laghari, Ataullah Tarar, Khalid Maqbool Siddiqui from the MQM, and of course along with that Kaisar Ahmed Sheikh, Mia Riaz Hussain Pirzada, Mohammad Ishaq Dar and Musaddiq Malik. Along with that, we're also hearing three other names such as Muhammad Aurangzeb, Ahad Chima and Mohsin Naqvi. With that, we know that the cabinet has been announced. These are the 19 members that will be a part of the federal cabinet headed by Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif. And we also hear that in our previous shows we talked about the right man for the right job. And of course, we'll also be talking about that and the governance challenges and the policy challenges and the way forward regarding the cabinet formation and the challenges that the government is going to face and how they're going to address those challenges. Of course, as we know that agreements and negotiation with the IMF will be in place very soon. And we also have reforms regarding the energy sector, regarding the tax sector, agriculture, business sectors and IT as well. We see that the country needs quick revenue generation and we need out-of-the-box solutions to address these challenges. Now, to talk about all the different dilemmas of today's topic, we've been joined in the studios by esteemed senior analyst Farrukh Pitafi. Along with that, we've been joined by esteemed geopolitical analyst Raja Faisal, and on Skype we have been joined by Dr. Niaz, Murtaza, political analyst. To start off our conversation, I'll begin with Dr. Niaz Murtaza that the government has announced its cabinet. It is a 19-member cabinet and will be facing challenges as well, such as we know that Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif, as soon as he was sworn in, he signalled towards talks with the IMF. And as we know that he's a devoted administrator and the cabinet will have to meet energies with the Prime Minister. How do you see the cabinet that has shaped up?
As you rightly say, the challenges are huge. There are challenges, most challenging are the ones in the economy and those related to security. So basically, if we start looking at, the economic team, right now, I guess just one or two people have been announced. For one thing, the portfolios of none of the ministers have been announced as of this evening. So it's really difficult to say about some of the people in the list that is circulating, what portfolios they'll have. But it's quite clear that for finance it's going to be Mr. Muhammad Aurangzeb. It's a bold move because there were various issues that were raised in the last 16 months as to how well the finance team did. And there were questions about Mr. Ishaq Dar and so on. So clearly the PMLN has decided to come up with a new name. I think Mr. Ishaq Dar will be there, but maybe in some other position. So in terms of Mr. Muhammad Aurangzeb, obviously he has a lot of banking experience both in Pakistan and internationally. But there are some people who also feel that given how bad our economic situation, especially the macroeconomic situation is, it may have been better to have somebody with a very strong macroeconomic background, preferably a PhD in macroeconomics, somebody with a lot of governmental experience, and then somebody with also IMF experience. Now, on these three counts, Mr. Aurangzeb doesn't have formal experience. He may have been interacting a lot with macroeconomics in his job as, a banker. You do have to understand it to some extent. But understanding and being, an expert in it are two different things. Same thing with, government functioning. He, I'm sure, must have interacted with a lot, but having the experience of looking at it from inside is different, and same with the IMF angle. So some may say that it's a bold move. Others might say that it's probably a bit risky given how bad the economic situation is, to have somebody brand new in all the three critical areas, and maybe a better mix, maybe somebody more experienced along with him, somebody, one person as an advisor, one person as a minister or a minister of state or a special assistant, somebody who had experience in those three areas may have been better. But let's see, it's definitely a bold move, and I hope it pays off, because right now immediate thing would be to give some relief to people and then go back to the IMF to have the last round for the current loan, and then restart the talks for the next loan, which should be longer term, 3 to 5 years, bigger amount.
Dr. Niaz, you just mentioned that providing relief to the people. Do you think that would be possible before or prior to the negotiations with the IMF, or is that something that the government should go forward with once they have negotiated the terms with the IMF?
Well, there was an announcement made of about, I think, like 12 to 15 billion rupees by the Prime Minister. So, of course, it's not a huge amount, but if it's given out in a targeted way so that it focuses on the bottom 15-20%, then given that Ramzan has started from today, from tomorrow, at least it would give some relief. And that's the big challenge going forward, that with the IMF program coming in, they have to find some way of giving relief to people who've been suffering with high inflation for about 6 or 7 years now. And the obvious way to do that is to generate more taxes, direct taxes from those sectors which have not been paying their due share. As long as you can show to the IMF that, yeah, we are collecting more taxes, it doesn't mind if you give some relief. So that will be the balance, and that's why somebody with more public finance experience, at least to go along with him. I'm not saying that he should not have been there, but a 2 or 3% finance team covering all these bases, I think, would have been a better option.
Right, of course, the government would want to facilitate the people as quickly as possible. But moving back to what Dr. Niaz had to say earlier regarding the Portfolio Finance Ministry, saying that we're seeing bold move and there could be a bold change there. Raja Faisal, what's your view on Dr. Niaz Murtaza's comments?
Yeah, Dr. Niaz has rightly put, and I think he started with the security challenges Pakistan is being faced with, and at the same time we have economic challenges as well. So these two portfolios, of course, if we talk about security, internal security as well as the external security, and the challenges which we are facing in terms of our relations with the other countries, of course, foreign minister, interior minister, and the finance minister, these three would be pivotal for the government. And of course the cabinet, as we are seeing right now, that the few names are very clear. That of course for the interior we are going to see Mohsen Naqvi Saab, and if we talk about of course the finance, Mohammad Aurangzeb, with the with a huge sort of experience he has in the banking sector, and we shouldn't be forgetting that he was part of the previous team as well that was negotiating with the IMF. So it is and it is said about him that of course he's got very good relations with the people who are part of the team of IMF. So that would be quite pivotal for Pakistan. Of course his services, as we know that the bank he's coming from is one of the major banks of Pakistan, and very successful one. his success, the series of his success in his own side, of course, that would be expected to, brought in this cabinet, and of course this government would be trying to improve its economic situation right now. And if we talk about, of course, the foreign affairs, this is where still I believe Ishaq Dar Saab is being considered for foreign minister.
Kind of unofficially named.
Unofficially, yeah, his name is circulating. So to me, I think it's a good move. And because we need to, of course, revamp our relations with many of our friendly countries, and especially when we talk about China and CPEC and each and everything, somebody with the experience of our finance sector, and of course somebody who's been looking after CPEC in past, it would be brilliant to have him as a foreign minister. So all I can see is that the cabinet so far, it is very good cabinet, and the challenges, the kind of challenges which are being faced by Pakistan, these people, they are of course fitted very well and suitable for that. And of course, if we talk about the defense ministry, we know that Khwaja Asif, he has been defense minister once. Once more, I think he is going to be considered for that. And when it comes to information ministry, Ataullah Tarat Saab, I think he's come in as an
As a full minister, by the way.
Yeah.
Right. Faisal, you mentioned different ministries, of course, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs as well, and the Interior Ministry as well. But I'd like to ask Farrukh what he thinks about the challenges Mohammad Aurangzeb is going to face. Of course, it is all unofficial at the moment, but what challenges would he face if he's sworn in as the finance minister? And how is he better able to tackle those challenges? Because we see this is a change. This is not as usual as the cabinet formation that we see for the PMLN.
Right. Esteemed Rafae, is this esteemed question meant for me?
Yes, it is meant for you.
Okay, all right. I just wanted to actually reply or address certain concerns that Dr. Niaz Murtaza actually raised. And I think that it is quite interesting. Pakistan has had this cycle of revolution between various fields when it comes to finance minister. Of course, Dar Saab is an accountant and who has been repeatedly coming as a finance minister. Then we have seen many PhDs also in economics or finance, becoming finance ministers of the country. And there are times when one banker actually not only was finance minister but ended up becoming the Prime Minister of Pakistan as well. So I think this cycle continues. So far, my humble submission is that we have seen only a list of ministers and one Minister of State. We haven't seen the names of SAPM so far. So the grapevine has it that there are going to be SAPMs both in the foreign ministry as well as finance ministry, and the outgoing finance minister is perhaps going to continue as the SAPM as well. So if that happens, we are going to have a very interesting team which is actually which will be able to contribute to policy choices. And when it comes to essentially talking to IMF, remember that in the end it is the Prime Minister who has to make the call, right? If you remember, when Ishaq Dar Saab was finance minister, we had actually hit this roadblock where he could not actually woo the IMF, and then the Prime Minister on the last day of the program stepped in to save the day.
Right.
So my humble submission is, learning from PDM's government, what we saw the position in which the Prime Minister was at that time. It reminded you of a very interesting cricketing rivalry between Shahid Afridi and Misbah-ul-Haq. When Misbah-ul-Haq would be actually captain, the entire team would be playing, but the captain would hardly play, right? Because he couldn't perform in the ODI format.
Right.
But whenever Shahid Afridi was the captain, at that time he would be the only person playing, because he couldn't carry the entire team along.
Right.
So my point is that when PDM government was there, there were times it felt that it was merely Shehbaz Sharif. And I keep on bringing up these two names because I thought that they also contribute a lot. Bilawal Bhutto Zardari and then Sharif Rahman, they also really went out of the way to perform. But it was mostly Shehbaz Sharif. So this time, what we see is a new cabinet. They are old faces, as you pointed out, and they are very esteemed, they are very well known, and they are established names. But then you have new names. For example, Mohsen Naqvi, Aurangzeb Saab. I haven't met Aurangzeb Saab, but I am sure that he brings in quite a lot of domain knowledge. Then, of course, various other posts. Chima is somebody we knew was very close to the Prime Minister when he was Chief Minister.
Right.
So he is also, and he suffered also because of everything that went on. So this seems to be a team that is meant for Shehbaz Sharif as the Prime Minister, and if he wants to deliver, he can. Now, you have talked about the Foreign Ministry, and Foreign Ministry is also very important because, as was pointed out by Raja Faisal, that of course the convergence of finance and diplomacy has become the most important existential issue for the country.
Yeah.
Right.
Because you have to go out and you have to raise funds, you have to ensure that there is economic inflows. But then I'm going to actually see, because when it comes to our incoming foreign minister, Dar Saab, then I want to see how he actually clicks with Afghanistan, for that matter, because the foreign minister is going to actually interact with them as well. And then how he is going to interact with India and America. So that is going to be a very interesting thing, right? Regarding Mohsen Naqvi, I think that one credential that stands out in his CV, and that is, no matter what you talk about, how elections were conducted, whatever happened, but election took place without any serious law and order situation in Punjab. So because of that, I think he has earned his bona fides. Now, of course, these three people don't have any membership of the parliament. So I see that in incoming list, we are going to see at least 5 names of senators that have been decided by this cabinet. But we still wait and we see what becomes of the latter entries and then SAPMs, because we are told that in Foreign Ministry there are going to be 2 more SAPMs.
Right.
One Jalil Abbas Jilani,
Okay.
and then of course it is PMLN's government. How can it be that Tariq Fatmi Saab is not SAPM? So
Right.
that might also happen.
Yeah, Rafae, I just wanted to mention one more thing.
Yes.
There is another important sort of shift, that is of Shaza Fatima.
Yeah, she's
Khwaja.
brilliant. Yeah.
She previously, of course, she was given the youth
Youth
portfolio,
affairs, yes.
youth affairs. Now she is going towards the IT affairs, and the IT ministry is going to obviously be given to her. This shows that, of course, previously if she was doing the youth ministry and the youth affairs, now she is going towards the IT affairs. It shows that IT would be having importance, and the importance of the youth, of course.
Right.
We know that youth is attracted towards the IT sector and all of that. So this shows that the right persons are even switched to somewhere else. They are switched to something relevant.
Right. While Shaza Fatma Khaja Sahiba's actual fan in the show is actually visiting abroad, Sana is not here. She is a big fan.
Right.
But I've
Okay.
known her also, and she used to, when I used to host an exclusive program at that time, she used to be a frequent guest on telephone. So I think that she is very capable. Another very interesting entry, and
Yeah.
that is Jam
Jam
Kamal.
Jam Kamal,
The
yeah.
CM
Yes.
was, from Balochistan. He has performed there well. I interviewed them. He is more or less of my age. So one concern that I have had is that he actually doesn't dye his hair.
Yeah.
And because
Yes.
of that, it becomes very difficult for people like me to actually associate with his age.
Right.
All this denting painting actually goes somewhere otherwise. But I think in coming days, we are going to see a good team which can perform. And because of the convergence of People's Party in the presidency and then the cabinet, we are going to see some very interesting kind of dynamic. And if it starts delivering, there will be a lot of good news in coming days.
Yeah, and
Well,
Farrukh, I just wanted to mention that I never dye my hair.
You shouldn't either. You shouldn't do that either. Including Dr. Niaz Murtaza. Since we're hearing the name of Mohsin Naqvi again and again in the conversation, and it'll most probably be his debut in the centre, what's your take on how effective can he prove as an interior minister? And the challenges that obviously he's going to face, because we see that even domestically in domestic politics, these are times when there's going to be a lot of rallies, public addresses, because the opposition is adamant about what they're going to do with their politics.
Yeah, there are three main ministries after the Prime Minister: Interior, Foreign, and Finance. So if we look at, each one of them, I've already given my opinion about finance. Now, Farrukh, mentioned that, Shamshad Akhtar may also continue. That would, bring in the kind of, the experience and the skills that I was talking about: IMF experience, government experience, macroeconomics experience. So that will be taken care of. But the only thing will be to make sure that, the roles of the two are very, very clear to everybody, because we did have that problem even in the last 16 in the last few months, that there was news that Shamshad Akhtar and Dr. Waqar Masood did not get along very well. So it would be very important to make sure that everybody is, clear what Shamshad Akhtar will be doing and what Aurangzeb will be doing, and also to make sure that, they get along with each other, because there's no clear line of authority. One might be advisor, one might be special assistant. So what will be the relationship of the two to each other? Who will be whose boss? So those kind of things have to be sorted out. Then if we look at,
Aurangzeb Saab is named as a minister. Dr. Saab, Aurangzeb Saab is mentioned as the minister.
Yeah.
He has shown in as minister. So we are clear who is going to be the boss in the organogram.
So that makes it a little more problematic, because Shamshad of course has more experience, whereas he could have been better as an understudy, learn the ropes from her for 6 months, 1 year, and then hit the road running. So that again is a problem from my point of view if he's going to be the minister. Then Interior Ministry, well, Mohsin Naqvi is a media person, and then all of a sudden he became Chief Minister of Punjab, and then PCB. So it seems like he's the master of all trades kind of a thing, and now he's supposed to become an Interior Minister. Does he have any experience in that? Yeah, he served for 6 months as Punjab CM, and there were issues about crackdown and human rights issues. So that's there. And then the third one is Foreign Ministry. And from what Farrukh was mentioning, three names. So again, a bit of a hodgepodge, and a need to make sure that, the roles of three of them is extremely clear to everybody, and, they work according to their own domain and as a team. It seems that, everybody is trying to get their own person within, the foreign ministry. So that could create problems. So I do see some problems in each of the three main areas: interior, finance, and your foreign ministry. Then beyond that, there is also the issue of balance, that there's only one woman out of 19 people so far, and then most of them are from one province, and then they're all sort of the old guard. So hopefully some of these problems will get fixed once the new additional positions are announced in the future. But it's important that beyond these three, other ministries are given competent people like commerce, industry, investment, because finance minister job is to ensure macroeconomic stability. But if you want to go out of the box, attract investment, exports, industrial growth, we have to have creative people with a lot of industrial experience in Pakistan and abroad. And as equally important are the social sector ministries like climate change, poverty, health, education. It's important to appoint competent people with merit in each of these areas, rather than just somebody who's your friend or who's an important piece of furniture in the party. Because if Pakistan has to break from the past, it will have to make huge progress on the economic front, as well as your social fronts, foreign policy, everything. And you have to have new people, not people who've been just pushing paper here and there. And a lot of the people you have within the 19 people are those kind of people who are generalists, who don't have a lot of expertise or merit. It's just that they are part of the party's high command, and close to the leaders. So that I see as a problem.
Right, very rightly pointed out, of course, a right man for the right job, that is the need of the hour. But Raja Faisal, I'd like to ask you, there's one ministry that we're not deliberating on as much, that would be the energy ministry. Considering Pakistan is facing a lot of energy challenges at the moment, we would need to rely on other resources. We would need alternate sources of energy at the moment, and that does our basically our reliance on imported hydrocarbons. That does add a lot to the circular debt of the country as well. What's your take on the energy ministry portfolio, and do you think it should be given more importance as the country faces a lot of energy challenges?
Yeah, why not? I mean, sure. If we, just remember that on Friday we did a show in which, of course, we highlighted the importance of the energy crisis which is being faced by Pakistan, and it is not the domestic crisis we, go through. It is the industrial crisis. I mean, industry it gets affected by it, and of course, if we look at the tariffs, the new tariffs of the inflated kind of energy which we are facing, which we are getting right now. Of course, Pakistan, population of Pakistan at large, and all of the industrial sectors of Pakistan, they are facing a huge problem. And of course, we need to go towards the more reliant and cheaper forms of energy, and at the same time, that is the greener energy we need to get on towards. And for that purpose, of course, we have to have the right person. If we look at the experience of the ministers, I mean, Khwaja Asif is someone who has the experience of course, serving as an energy minister in past. And if we look at other names from within PMLN, there are quite a few names that can be considered. Engineer Amir Muqam is a name. Of course, he can be considered for it.
He is not part of this cabinet, though.
Amir Muqam is. I guess.
Okay, he is. Okay.
Engineer Amir Muqam, he can be considered, and I think if he is included for this portfolio, then of course it would be a new test for him. And of course, he being engineer, of course, I would be expecting that something new is coming from him, and of course, I think it would be good. Yes, we are facing challenges, but Rafae, when we obviously talk about the challenges in the energy sector, the solutions, if rightly pointed out and if rightly worked about, we can get the solutions in, let's say, a couple of years. And in them couple of years, of course, we have to have the solutions if we really want to have our economy back on track. When I say that energy crisis, if it is sorted, then of course it can help generate the domestic production that can be actually pivotal when it comes to enhancing Pakistan's exports as well. And for that purpose, of course, we have to have the right person for the right job. And I'm just waiting, as you are waiting, for who gets selected for that portfolio. To me, if somebody asks, I would simply go for Engineer Amir Muqam.
Right.
Okay. Allow me to actually just, without your asking a question, butt in. Regarding the list, of course, there were names that my memory actually didn't trick on me. But that also did tricks on Raja Faisal, because he missed two obvious names for the post, right? If you remember, Dr. Musaddiq Malik is also part of this cabinet. Not only was he, energy minister during the previous government, PDM government, but if you remember his claim to fame also because he was caretaker governments usually gift you with certain candidates who are actually holdovers, and then they continue and become parties members. Dr. Murtaza Malik was a caretaker minister in 2013, and then he continued. Right, and he was Minister for Energy at that time also. So I think that he is the most appropriate name. But here's the caveat. I recall 2013, this is PMLN we are talking about, and they always throw a spinner. For example, in 2013, we saw Kamran Michael's name, and immediately thought that he's going to be the Minister of Women, not that he's because of obvious reasons. Turned out that when cabinet portfolios were distributed, he got something else, like industry or something, overseas Pakistanis, I think. And it was a religious, cleric who got the ministry of minorities as well, clubbed together with other portfolios. So that also happens. But at this moment, there are two people that are very interesting entries. Murtaza Malik Saab, brilliant man and very capable. And then Kaisar Sheikh has also, he actually comes from the industries, field. He is himself an industrialist, businessman. So I think that he is also very capable, and he can be considered for this as well. All we need to do right now is just wait, as was pointed out by Raja Saab, and wait and see who gets what. But having said that, I think that two or three things that are going to be very serious challenges. One, how to bring down inflation while you have to keep increasing the prices of energy, of gas and electricity and petroleum. That is going to be a huge challenge. Negotiating with IMF is going to be another very important challenge. And then we have to look at the delivery and overall, relief for the people. I think that these are things that we have to wait and see. And I'm interested who gets BISP, because it was originally thought that it is People's Party's nominee who is going to get it. But so far we haven't seen any names coming from People's Party. So it could be that some, Shazia Mari, who was the in charge of this the last time, she gets it, and then she's inducted or considered equivalent to a minister, or perhaps it can change as well. We still have to wait and see, because BISP and these social safety nets are going to play a very important role if you really want to adjust your macroeconomics, and if you want to ensure that economy is fixed while it is not too brutal on the common man on the street.
True.
Right, very, very rightly put. But there's one ministry that I'd also like to discuss, and it's the ministry that is related to our work, the Information Ministry, and I'm talking about that because we're seeing, and we're living in times where there's a lot of disinformation and misinformation, not just domestically. It's a phenomena that's taking all of the internet and all of the world by a storm. Dr. Niaz, Murtaza, how important do you think the role of Information Ministry is going to be, considering the domestic landscape, both politically and in all domains?
Yeah, I think that's another very important area, just because of the situation in Pakistan. In other countries, you don't even have a ministry like that, information ministry. But in Pakistan, the huge history that we've had about censorships and this and that. So it is a very important ministry in that sense. And again, there are huge issues to be dealt with. Issues about internet access, Twitter access, issues about the arrest of a large number of journalists. And that all happened under, of course, the caretaker government. So now there's a hope that, when, an elected government is in place, which has come through, people's votes, it will be more mindful about things like, human rights, freedom of expression, freedom of press, etc. And the thing is that, we were talking about People's Party. And in many of these areas, People's Party could have provided very useful input, because it's much more strong on, human rights, then PMLN, then the social sectors that we were talking about, BISP, climate change. PPP has really strong expertise in this area. We saw with Shari Rahman, the critical role she played internationally on climate change issues. Similarly, on law, people like Raza Rabbani, Atazaz Ehsan, and even Foreign Ministry, Hina Rabbani Khar. Those are extremely critical, skills that PPP possesses. And if it had been part of, the cabinet, first of all, is it's a matter of taking responsibility. If you're part of the coalition, you should be ready to carry some of the responsibility, and then these very specific kind of skills that it has compared with PMLN. PMLN, of course, has its own areas like energy, interior, and so on. But on the softer side, the PPP could have added a lot more. So I hope it will reconsider its decision and join the cabinet in the future. And maybe information ministry and things like the social sectors could go to the PPP, and it could play a useful role in that regard.
Dr. Saab, I have a question for you as well. For past 2 or 3 days, we have been hearing this speculation, especially coming from some journalists who actually focus on this field, that a Prime Minister has spoken about the need to reduce the tax slabs. And today he actually spoke, when he was addressing the cabinet, he actually pointed out that instead of actually increasing the taxes or number of taxes, what government needs to actually do or seeks to do is to expand the tax base. The question, because essentially when you talk about removing certain tax slabs, is that if that happens, it might actually have a devastating effect on the working class families or people who are a salaried class. Do you think that today's statement actually cancelled out all those speculations or not?
Well, any tax system, there are 3 or 4 criteria by which it is judged. First of all, the most important is that, it should bring the money in. But beyond that, there is also the issue of simplicity. The more, different kind of taxes you have, the more slabs you have, it becomes all the more complicated. And then, the third one, and not the least one, is equity. So that the burden doesn't fall on the salaried people, on the lower classes. So that is where the trick is. If you want to make it simple, then that means reducing the number of different taxes, reducing the number of slabs. But then equity demands that the lower classes, the bottom 25-30% of the people should not have to face this burden that especially comes through indirect taxes. And that is what Pakistan has been focusing on in the last several decades. Just increase indirect taxes, and our direct taxes are less than 40%, and indirect taxes fall more on the poor people. So that is why somebody with a very strong public finance experience, tax experts, has to be there in the team. And of course, Mr. Aurangzeb will have his own strengths, I'm sure, but in terms of public taxation and public finance, you need somebody very strong, and that's where Shamshad Akhtar will hopefully be able to provide the necessary background. We definitely need to increase our tax GDP ratio, and we certainly need to reduce the burden on the lower classes, both of the indirect taxes, and also because of the different kind of slabs that we have. So that will be a big challenge.
Yeah, Dr. Niaz, earlier you highlighted the point that, of course, there are very right people for the right job within Pakistan People's Party. Of course, when we talk about BISP, when we talk about Shari Rahman, the way she displayed her interest in the climate change and all of that.
Her capability.
Yeah, capabilities and all. So you have rightly raised this issue, and of course we know that initially when the talks were held between People's Party and PMLN to form a government, Since then, of course, they have been reluctant to be part of the cabinet. Can we say that in coming future, in few months or so, they will rethink about their decision, and in coming future they might be attracted towards being part of this cabinet?
And Dr. Saab, I want to actually add to this question regarding something very interesting, and that is hypothetical regarding if People's Party does not join, including not take over the BISP department. There are other people, technocrats in other political parties. For example, we saw Dr. Sania Nishtar actually playing a very important part when she was heading SAS. She's a senator from PTI, but now she's technically independent. The question right now is there possibility, because there is always a measure of transparency and oversight, that somebody from across the aisle can be asked to actually take over that department if People's Party doesn't join?
Well, the good thing is that you should start from the very beginning, because these ministries cannot be kept vacant. So somebody will have to be appointed, and then if People's Party comes in later, first of all, it will lose all the time, and then there will be friction with other parties who will get removed. So I would have loved to see People's Party being there right from the first day on all these important areas. Legislation, constitutional areas. There's nobody like Mr. Nazar Azbani and Mr. Atazaz Hassan. Other parties don't have that caliber of intellectuals in the area of constitutionalism, in social sector areas. So definitely, I think People's Party's loss will be felt in these areas. And why People's Party has decided that? Because frankly, it was part of the 16-month government, which did very badly, at least in terms of the outcomes in the economic area. But then still, the People's Party did not face any backlash, and it was actually able to increase its a proportion of seats in Sindh, and it's done very well in Balochistan, and to some extent even in Punjab. And so as long as it could have stayed away from finance, where it doesn't have that much expertise in any case, I think it would have been wise for it to join without facing much backlash from the voters later on, whenever the next elections are held. So I think it's important for other parties, PMLN, to again approach People's Party and make sure that they come on board as soon as possible.
Right, Farrukh, you posed the question, and we listened to what Dr. Niaz Murtaza had to say, but I'd also like to ask you, do you think the PPP abstaining from being a part of the cabinet, not actively being a part of the cabinet, would be a good sign for the governance, or would it become a challenge for the coalition?
I don't think that it is going to change much regarding People's Party, the cost that People's Party itself actually has to pay, because whether you are part, or as was pointed out by Dr. Saab, whether it was part of the cabinet or it isn't this time, it still is going to be a very important cog in this entire machinery of coalition. But I think that again, I'm totally deferring to what Dr. Saab said earlier, that it will be difficult when they enter again to displace certain ministries. For example, there are ministries that might actually eventually be abolished. The climate change ministry is going to go down. We know that it is essentially a devolved subject, and People's Party keeps on demanding that provinces actually get a front seat in that. But Bilawal Bhutto Zardari was a very good foreign minister.
Yes.
And now somebody who couldn't be sacked as the finance minister is going to be the foreign minister. So do you think that it will be easy to displace him? No. So Bilawal's, the only seat that could have been for Bilawal is gone, right? Now who else comes? Sherry Rahman Sahiba could have actually entered here. But again, we keep on hearing that there is a possibility that she might get some other, vacancy or some different assignment. So we still have to wait and see what actually becomes of it. But this question of reaching across the aisle, and I think that given that we have seen IPP's representation, And the gentleman who has actually joined was a very important part of PTI only a few years ago. I think that technocrats that are in the mix, it will be high time to reclaim them as well. For example, I spoke about Dr. Sania Nishtar, right? She was recently made the head of Gavi, the international body that is actually meant for vaccines and immunization. So with that kind of a body, if she has that kind of stature, why actually not claim somebody from that position and take her on board as well? I am saying this because right now the most critical part in social sector is going to be data. There were floods which came, and at that time also what we needed was geolocation using various devices like Google's Maps and others, so that you can have the history of people who were displaced. Similarly, who is where and how deserves how much. This is also important. So I think that in coming days you will be needing people with domain knowledge and understanding of the architecture of the system to actually be taught in. Whether it can happen, whether it cannot, I don't know. But I hope that someday we have evolved to that level that we can have people like that as well.
Well, of course, we all hope that, of course, as the center of our conversation revolved around the right man for the right job, we need innovation at the moment. We need out-of-the-box ideas.
Right woman as well.
Yeah, and we do
Right
need women, exactly, because we're seeing that Shiza Fatma is the only woman in the cabinet at the moment, and we'd like to see more included as advisors, as part of the cabinet, and more women taking part in policy making and initiatives and frameworks that will take the country forward. Unfortunately, we're short on time. On Skype, we had been joined by Dr. Niaz, Murtaza, political analyst. Thank you for your views and your time. In the studios, we were joined by Farrukh, Pitafi and Faisal. And of course, in today's show, we deliberated on the new cabinet and old challenges. And of course, we deliberated on different ministries and the different portfolios relating to the cabinet members. And we discussed the challenges that they'll be facing in the coming days and suggestions on how they could better tackle those challenges. With that, we'll conclude today's episode. See you same time tomorrow. Till then, take care and a very Ramzan Mubarak.